Okay, it is 12 noon, high noon, as they say in the old west. I got the cowboy hat. Here's Blake back there. I better bring him in. Hey Blake, what are you doing? I thought I was going to be home by myself. I just saw you now. Holy smokes!
No, I've been sitting here for about 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I have music on, and I've just been getting links and the thing. But you're coming in really fine and clear. I thought I was going to have to fly solo today because it's 12 noon, but you're not here. Danny Allen is with us. Wolfie is watching. Blake, tell the kids where you are and what's going on.
I am currently just got off the ferry. I arrived early here on Quadra Island, British Columbia. So I don't know if anyone can see the view, but anyways, I'm
Yeah,
right
we
by the
see
ocean.
a lot of water out there.
Yeah, that's Campbell River across the water from here. So I'm right by the ferry terminal. I thought, this is a good spot with good cell coverage. I could probably do the show from here because it's
Yeah,
pretty spotty and on the island in
yeah.
parts.
Well, we got a lot of stuff to go through. I've got a whole ton of links. Big stories today. You know, the DC pipe bomber, January 6th.
Yeah,
Everything's kind of lit up about that. People are saying it's a female former Capitol Hill police officer. They've identified this person who is allegedly the perpetrator on that. We're going to talk more about the filibuster. Trump's really pushing for the filibuster. If they don't, the Republicans are in big doo-doo. They're going to be in trouble because the Dems, when their turn comes at bat, it's like playing the World Series, right? You got the top of the ninth, the bottom of the ninth. Right now, everything's in our corner. We're at bat. All we have to do is, get the run in. But if you don't get your run, well, the other team gets a crack at it. And so Smart Money is saying they're going to go through with this.
yeah.
Filibuster, the Dems will do it themselves, and ban it, and they'll push through what they want to get done, which basically be communism 101, the way things are looking.
Especially New York.
New York is, of course, the case study. So New York's going to be very interesting to see what happens as Mandani or whoever the hell he is starts running his policies. And we'll see how economically how New York progresses. Maybe Manhattan will be given back to the Indians.
Well, I had posted that really John Carpenter may have been a prophet by creating the movie Escape from New York.
Yeah, it's crazy. Eh? Snake Blitzen, incredible. Oldie Hawn, what's his name? Kurt Russell.
Yeah. Snake Plissken. Just call me Snake.
Yeah. What a cult hit. But the other news, sad news coming out of Canada, coming out of, I think it all took place in British Columbia with the ostrich farm. So last night, this is a story Blake and I followed months ago, and it's just been a kind of a slow decline. It's horrible. But last night they were all slaughtered. And so I've got a kind of a great post that kind of speaks to the horrors of it all. And so this is from, I love this. It's a kind of a very biting, sarcastic account called Petrified COVID Parent. Petrified COVID Parent. So the name itself. Okay, let's take a look at it. Always to make sure it's big enough for you. Yeah. So there's what they call the kill pen. The blue tarps are down. And those little dots, I'll go to it. So dead. And you can see they're all spread out. Apparently, the killing went on for hours. Like it was like a 3-hour effort to shoot. And it was done by firearm. But here's the interesting thing for Petrified COVID Parent. I'm so glad that the government murdered all the ostriches. Now, of course, he's not. This is the sarcasm. This is kind of how this account writes. They had recovered from a rare form of bird flu, correct, and had its genetic sequence, as well as the genetic sequence of the antibodies mapped out in their DNA. We cannot let anything affect the profits of big pharma. So by culling this herd that were healthy, they had bird flu, they defeated the disease, now they had all the antibodies. They were walking medicine, basically, walking, breathing medicine. And by culling them, they ended all chance of that happening. They're also, Viva Lafrey has come out and he's saying, we want to know the exact count on the birds, because could they have taken some of those birds, carted them off, where it was tinfoil hat, then provided that to Pfizer or somebody else, and provided the medicinal benefit of those ostriches to big pharma, so that they can in turn create some sort of vaccine against the next wave of trouble, and then hand over fist with the money, right? Because there's money
Yeah.
in our birds. So very interesting. But obviously, it was traumatic for the family. The reporters that were there from our side of the political aisle,
Yeah.
we're heartbroken, very distraught. It's aroused a lot of emotion in people, negative emotion to be sure. Your thoughts on the whole operation? What was the government doing? Was there a message in this for the Canadian public?
Well, there's a message that the Canadian government, provincial governments, and governments in general in Canada like to portray, and that is they're never wrong, even when they're wrong. So there's a message here. It's simply is that you don't have a voice. We're in charge, and when our bureaucracy makes a decision, too bad for you. We're the people who know what we're doing, even though we don't know what we're doing. But because we made an order, we pretend we know what we're doing, but we carry it out anyways, even when we know it's wrong. And that's the problem with the Canadian government. That's the problem with the British Columbia government. That's the problem. There's this sense of you just don't debate the government. They know best. And I think that's the problem. And they like to herald themselves as being perfect when we know they're imperfect. And, in this kind of situation, I mean, yeah, is it possible that some of the bodies might disappear off to a Pfizer lab or something like that? Some big pharma. I don't know. I mean, the question would have to be, who owns the bodies of the ostriches in the end? Is it the farmer owns it? Because I think they would
own it.
Well, I mean, they get massacred, but by the government, but the property would still remain unless it was expropriated from them with some kind of evidence. But they would get the opportunity to pull the blood and do blood samples and store them. And I would hope, because we had some pretty big American names standing up to say, hey, we'd take them south, including Maha man himself, Robert Kennedy Jr., stood up and said, we need to save these ostriches. They're going to be important for science. So, this was a horrible travesty of justice. I think Canada should hang its head in shame. And you know what? Where the hell was all the animal rights activists on the left? I never saw one of them. Where was PETA? PETA squawking all the time, running around naked, doing their stupid shit, and they didn't show up once.
Good
Not
point.
once.
Yeah.
So it just shows they're just another far left group that's financed by big interest to try to destabilize the individual and mom pop operators of the world.
Yeah, there's no sincerity in PETA, because if they had a soul, I mean, a whole lot of people are, were emotionally involved in this story. It went on for some time, and and its ending was absolutely horrific. And of course, the police did not conduct themselves professionally through this thing as well. There's film footage of that. So all in all, a black day in Canada. Ready for our next story, Blake? We've already chewed out about 10 minutes on that first story, so it's kind of interesting. Got another one.
Well, it's horrible. There was a video where the owner, she could hear the shots going off after another. I mean, must have been horrendous to have to listen to that. So
and it went on for like 3 hours. So
it was a turkey shoot essentially. I mean, they were penned in, and
All right, Blake, here's our next story. This comes by way of the United Kingdom. I wish the sound was bigger on, I've tried, but we're going to play it. Hopefully you can get the gist of it. If you don't get it, I'll read a little of the preamble before so you get an understanding. This guy has gone viral. Of course, we're coming up on Remembrance Day. We have a World War II veteran here. The story reads, this is Inevitable West breaking. British veteran breaks down live on television over state of the country. Quote, rows and rows of white tombs. For what? A country of today? No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result. I fought for freedom, and it's darn sight worse now than when I fought. Remembrance Day, World War II veteran remembers his comrades. Apparently, this guy is like 100 years old or something. Well, let's give him a full benefit here. So let's go big, and we'll play the clip, and hopefully it's loud enough.
What does Remembrance Sunday mean for you? What is your message?
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye those rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
What do you mean by that, though? At this point?
What we fought for, and what we fought for was our freedom. We find that even now it's darn sight worse than what it was when I fought for it.
Oh, Alec, I'm sorry you feel like that, because I want you to know that all the generations that have come since.
All right. So you got the condescending, whatever that is, BBC, ITV, whoever the hell it is.
Regime media, yeah.
Yeah, usually the thing like, oh dear, sorry, little Johnny, that, it sounds like she's talking to a 5-year-old. Oh, I'm really sorry you feel that way, with all our buggery and, the arrests for mean tweets and all the rest where we sit in 2025. God bless that guy. Said, oh, bless him, but don't be surprised. Of course, his 4D, our good friend, over in Manchester, England himself. So he's over there. He knows. But I thought, man, how true is that? I had an uncle killed in World War II, April 14th, 1945. Tom Thomas, my uncle, was killed by a German 88 millimeter flak weapon and a tank weapon. He was a dispatch writer. 2 weeks before it was all over, and, they got him. And so many people died in that conflict. And here we have this hero who's had a long life, but he sees, and he makes the damning judgment that, if we could see into the future where we are now with this country, I don't think we'd do it. Right now, Blake, if you were called up, would you serve? Here's the question. Would you serve if they had called you out? I know you're getting a little long in the tooth there, kid, but.
Yeah. I don't know if they would take me at 56 years old, but if it was the Ukraine, they'll probably take anybody at this point.
Yeah,
no, actually, I would reject it unless we were directly in the crosshairs of an invasion. That's a different thing. I think Canadians would rise to the challenge if there was a foreign entity like China or something like that started attacking our coastlines. You would have no choice. That's where you do it. But to go and fight foreign wars to support what I believe is a soft fascist government going towards hard fascism, no, I couldn't support them. I couldn't in good conscience do it, just to go kill people because the globalists want us to go and take over the world for them. Not interested at all.
Yeah, I'm going to stand against you with the China comment. What's the difference between China and the Canadian government?
Nothing at this point.
But
I'm saying I would volunteer to defend our shores from China if there was a physical attack. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. It's just, you think about it, really, our government is doing what the Chinese government has already done. And Trudeau, when he said, I admire China's basic dictatorship,
Yeah.
Truer words could not have been spoken. Another quote, and it could be a misquote on Trudeau, but it was very interesting to me, where he said, old stock Canadians are the problem. That's you, that's me, the old timey, French and Scottish and Irish and English people that made up, the origins of this nation and its freedoms that we once had that are no longer in play. They're a problem. And he says, they can be replaced. They can be replaced. And so you're not irreplaceable, and I think we're seeing that. One of our ministers got in trouble, or he was actually a medical guy, and he showed the graduating radiology class in Ontario. And of course, it was a multicultural, ethnically heavy panorama of people of color. And he got the feedback. He goes, I'm very disappointed in the racism. I said, so what are you going to do? Are you going to have these racists arrested now? Is this the next step for you? Because you're disgusted by the obvious kickback to the graduating class of 2025, right? Yeah, very interesting. What do you think about the veterans' comments? Was World War II worth fighting, knowing what we know now, or would you like to have loved ones back that sacrificed? Millions of people died in that conflict.
Yeah. Well, I think he made incredibly valid points, because I think he's just portraying how many of us feel, except he physically put his life on the line to defend our Western way of life. And what's really under attack at this point is essentially we're seeing this form of soft fascism guised as progressivism, mixed with this toxic Marxism. I don't know what you call it. It's like the Marxists and the fascists have aligned, and they call it progressivism. And that's what progressivism is today. They don't believe in individual rights and freedoms. They believe in collectivism, but they also believe in corporate fascism. These are crony capital deals that are aligned with the state. It's terrifying, actually, watching it happen in real time. But I'm optimistic. I think we're seeing that pushback now. It's good that these old veterans can get on TV and actually say something, because the media just proves what they are. It's just, as I said, they're the regime media for the current establishment that hates what our country stood for and what they fought and bled for, which was that classic liberal democracy where our liberal rights were based on individual freedom, liberties, a right to own property, the right to a freedom to associate. But we're now being funneled into this collectivist mindset where you're boxed into little groups and controlled. You're controlled on your spending. You're going to be controlled on your finances. They want the China one world government system that follows that social credit score. It's everything against what those guys fought for. And it brings to mind, again, and I think we've talked about him before, is Don Cherry's cancellation. I mean, he basically said the same thing. People just don't respect what we have today. And as a matter of fact, the fascists and the Marxists working collectively right now want to tear all that down and saying it was all for nothing because you guys were all racist, whatever. But that's just garbage. They know it's garbage. It's basically they're trying to take over, and they're trying to demonize free people as the bad people or the baddies when they're actually the baddies, right? In this case. So my heart goes out to them. I've known 3 of my grandfathers, 2 great grandfathers, and one of them, my great grandfathers died, but 2 of them I knew who had fought in World War I. Including my dad's father, my direct grandfather. He fought in World War I. He was old enough that when I was born, he was still alive. And my other great grandfather, he fought and got injured. All of them lost something, right? Yeah. My grandpa Beddington from my mother's side, he was in World War II. He was the only one in World War II. All the other 3 that I knew were all World War I. But every single one of them came back with a piece of them missing. I'm talking body parts to shrapnel. One of them, a mustard gas. He could never breathe properly again. And you just think all these people sacrificed everything just so that we could have freedom. And you know what? Wealth isn't negative. People need to stop condemning, saying we should feel guilty about being wealthy as nations. There's nothing wrong with having that wealth. You earned it. You built it. That's what you want for your children so that they can be healthy and happy and have opportunities. But instead, we're going backwards. 100% backwards.
We got a great comment here. The problem is the tactic of inevitability. The tactic of inevitability is if globalism is realism, it creates a mindset of no choice. Example, people see ID cards as inevitable, which is then self-fulfilling. Well, I think it's the general feeling of what they want is kind of hopelessness, learned helplessness. This is a psychiatric technique. It's been done. So it's a cruel thing. Do you know? Have you learned, or do you know anything about learned helplessness, Blake?
No.
The psychological. Sorry. So what it is, they'll take a dog, for example, and they'll put it on an electric plate, and they'll shock it. Now the dog will start reacting negatively to being shocked, obviously. But eventually they shock it and it learns that it can't get away from it. And eventually it just lies down and whimpers in the corner as they continue. These fucking sadistic motherfucking godless scientists, shock these animals and other experiments in that vein. So the idea, this goes back to the top story, or the story we led with anyway, with this ostrich farm thing. The government is telling the Canadian people, you can complain, you can protest, but you can't stop it. The death of these animals was inevitable. And talk about predictive programming. I think it was 4 months ago or so that they had not this hour has 22 minutes, or a Canadian CBC comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Did a thing with the ostriches, mocking anybody that had any concern for them. Again, PETA and other animal rights groups absolutely silent. The silence was deafening. A much lighter story. This next one is kind of fun. It's gone a bit viral because it was quite shocking to see. I've got some advice myself here to help the dear lady, but here we go. Holy crap. When you lie and seek to destroy others, it rots you from the inside out. Blake, this is Stormy Daniels in the deep throes of Trump derangement syndrome. What the absolute hell happened? And people are going, oh boy, so it's just going on. She finally admitted it. It's just, oh boy. Okay, so anyway, there we go. There's Trump. So the liberals are having fun with the counterpoint. But Juanita Broddick there, bringing in, she's taking some hits herself for that. But Stormy Daniels looking like a bag of shit. My response was take one of them little Trump stickers that goes, I did that. And so I have, Trumpy bear going, I did it, But holy smokes, poor Stormy wearing the scars of her efforts. All right, a slight aside. Let's get in with another big story. One of the biggest stories, probably the biggest story we're going to cover today. If Republicans, so this from the White House, great check mark. If Republicans kill the filibuster, they sail to victory for many years to come. If they don't, quote, big letters, disaster waiting to happen, President Donald J. Trump. And there's the quote right there on Truth Social. The president talk about the filibuster. And I got some more on this just to, we'll continue along with it. Okay. This is from Scott Pressler, of course, a little gay guy. He's a tall gay guy, really, out in New Jersey, working very hard for the president. He works everywhere. He's a real powerhouse for our side of the aisle. Justin Scott Pressler warns Republicans if they don't nuke the filibuster, to allow legislation to pass with 51 votes, you are going to be stuck with mail-in ballots. So you either learn to use mail-in ballots or prepare to lose the 2026 midterm elections. Scott knows what he's talking about. Listen to Trump and Scott Pressler. Either go nuclear and ban universal mail-in voting, or immediately surge early voting for Republicans and get used to it forever. Your choice, senators, your call. Make the call on that. So really interesting. And then one more clip on this, and then we'll turn it over to Blake for your thoughts on it. Here's the Dems. This clandestine. This is a great account. I like this guy. Those who think it's a bad idea to terminate the filibuster, you need to watch this now. The Dems tried to end the filibuster in 21, and Raskin was one of the ones pushing for it. If we don't win now, they will later. Stop being soft, fight and win. Here's Raskin on doing the thing, telling CNN his thoughts on filibuster.
One of the things that he has been talking about for the last couple of days more intensely is getting rid of the filibuster. That's actually something that you wanted to do when Joe Biden was president and things weren't getting through the Senate.
Look,
is that an area where you agree with him?
We don't need a procedural fix at this point.
So you wanted the filibuster to be ended when Biden was president, but now, no.
You know, I'm not in the Senate, so I've got no say in that.
All right. Well, so there he is.
CNN's looking to raise her ratings by being honest.
Yeah. So, and Steve, welcome to the show. Howdy. Good to see you, partner. All right, Blake. So your take on the filibuster? Do you think is President Trump fear-mongering? Is this an unwarranted concern, or is Pressler, the president, and others correct in saying get this filibuster done? If you don't, the Dems are going to do it to you, and there's not going to be any redress from your end of things. Blake?
Well, if they don't get the agenda pushed through now, you go into 2026, and the longer this drags out, the more the Dems can keep pointing that it's the Republicans that are holding up everything, and they're not willing to compromise, and they're not willing to come to the middle. That will be their argument, even though we know what they're trying to fund is against everything to do with what MAGA was all about, which was reconstituting the United States. These guys want to grab billions and billions of dollars to funnel it to friends, and that's what it's about. But they're ready to wait it out and let the Republicans die if they don't do something about it. And this is the year to do it. If you go and do it now, it'll be out of sight, out of mind by New Year's. That's like the people's attention span is so short these days. They don't remember things, and it just becomes a past story. So hit them hard now, and that would be the way to do it, and make your changes, because the Dems will do it to you. It's going to happen. They're working for that uniparty elite that were a handful of Republicans and Democrats that would love to tear down MAGA completely and end it. And then all of a sudden you got a switch in the House, and your agenda is being turfed or sidelined because you can't move forward. You get stuck in the mud, and the longer it waits out. Trump's right. The longer they sit on it, the longer they think the Dems are somebody's gonna break. I don't think so. I think these guys are dug into their trenches. I think you got to break up the trench and end it.
Yeah, and of course, one thing we're going to see definitely, anytime the Dems have enough power to do it, guess who's getting impeached again? It's going to be another.
Yeah, exactly. Another clown show.
The same thing we did, same clown show we had to endure during Trump's first administration, with all the lawfare that was directed against it. We're going to see that all start up again. And this administration has been very effective so far because, nothing's coming up. The filibuster hadn't been called for until now. Things have been happening. Speaking of things happening, the next head to roll, it looks like, figuratively, John Brennan and the grand conspiracy against President Trump. It finally dawns on, and let's just pause her here because we'll play the clip. It finally dawns on MSNBC, which employs former CIA Director John Brennan, that because he keeps talking, he keeps bringing the conspiracy forward. There is no statute of limitations on an ongoing conspiracy. And again, we discussed in our previous show that all the action, all the legality is swinging over to Florida. That bodes very well for our side, where we have a shot at seeing some real justice. But here's MSNBC talking about Brennan, and he keeps talking. Let's see what she says.
Of course, there's the theory of an ongoing conspiracy, a statute of limitations for a conspiracy that keeps going and is sort of continuing in nature, runs for 5 years from the last overt act that somebody took to basically execute on that conspiracy or agreement to do something in violation of the law. Again, John Brennan left government more than 5 years ago, but the theory could be that as he has continued to talk, even in his capacity as an analyst, he might be doing something that they would consider criminal. But of course, there's the theory of an ongoing conspiracy, a statute of limitations for a conspiracy that...
All right. So Brennan's in hot water. There's a net being laid out where there's a dragnet in play, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm Joe Friday. I'm a cop. I don't laugh. I just facts, man. All right. So very interesting. Blake, so the dragnet is out. We're seeing Comey is caught in it. The little walrus guy, the warmonger, that idiot. And then now it looks like we're going to get a shot at John Brennan, former CIA director. So very interesting to see the dragnets going. We're going to see justice at all, Blake?
It just depends how long these drag out in the courts. If it get even... if they can get to, as you said, the clown show that could happen in 2026 during the midterm elections, if the House and both houses switch in any shape or form, if it goes Dem, no, it goes nowhere. That's why they got to move quick so they can get these done. But Brennan is one of those characters. He's like an evil general that falls under a James Bond kind of, one of the guys that was working for Spectre. This guy's, I don't know. He's he is a weirdo. There's something freaky about that guy. I don't know if I've heard stories where he's an avowed communist. I don't know if that's the case. I think he just works for the establishment. He's part of their apparatus. He was the head of their intelligence side, and to run their psyops on the population and criminalized Americans who were really just opposing their agenda. So this is a guy. He's one of the back war room generals. They need to get him. They need to get him removed and move fast.
Yeah, so. James Clapper is another one. These former CIA. And folks, for those interested, Virginia's governor, they just had the governor race, gubernatorial race in Virginia, and a former CIA operative is now the governor of Virginia. I mean, what do you think about the CIA in public office? Like, any concerns about that?
Well, they had a president, right? George Bush Sr. He was CIA as well. So I think, you've got a history of this. Yeah, it's creepy. That's all I can say. I think I would rather know that the people that are coming in are more of the people. The operatives have a sense of that there's something going on underhanded, and especially nowadays. There would have been a time, I think maybe George Bush Sr.'s time was maybe the last, where they were fighting to preserve America from the infiltration of communism. He fought against the Japanese in World War II, but none of these guys did. And there's something creepy about them.
There's rumors about George Bush Sr. being not necessarily being a good actor when it came to the Kennedys.
Well, that's for sure.
he has been seen as kind of one of the names that gets mentioned, in that context. Okay, we got kind of the stories taking some legs, getting some legs today. So we'll do a little bit of a deep dive on this one. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 links dedicated to this next story, and then I'm going to turn over to you, Blake, and the obviously our guest, and just see what you folks think about all this. But it's kind of an interesting story. It's kind of caught me by surprise. We're talking about the January 6th pipe bomber. Basically, the idea is if we can uncover this individual, if it turns out this individual is FBI or a government agent in any way, that underscores that there was a conspiracy on January 6th to run interference on the president, to muddy him, to dirty him, and then use it to basically handcuff him the rest of the way through his administration, the first administration. So here we go. Let's start taking a look at some of these. Okay, this is from Kylie J. Kremer. The play is accountability, real accountability, not another DC cover-up. Now that the alleged identity of the January 6th pipe bomber, Shawnee Kirkhoff, so we've got a name now, okay, is finally being forced into the light. Every single person connected to that operation needs to be exposed and indicted. Let's stop pretending this was some, quote, lone actor. Nothing about January 6th happened in a vacuum. There were networks, there were handlers, there were people who knew exactly what was happening and when. They inflicted psychological warfare on the American public. They weaponized chaos. They shattered lives, including mine. They do not get to walk away from that. No more excuses, no more classified, no more carefully scripted press conferences, names, charges, trials now. C3 writes, when it turns out the January 6th pipe bomber was a Capitol Hill police officer, watch how fast they claim it was a training exercise that just happened to have been on January 6th. Of course, it will be a lie. Here's the individual in question. There's some photos. We're going to go deeper into this, but that's the setup, okay? This is the setup play. And then we got the persistence with the filibuster nuke below it. But that is the call. Okay, so we got more. And some of the still shots, I went to, one of the big questions, well, does this person even look female? They're all masked up, garbed. But we've got some footage. Some of it looks like it's just a guy. But as you go through, I think the case can be argued that it was female. Reasonable doubt. This is all alleged. This is all, quote, conspiracy tinfoil hat mode right now. But, conspiracy is just a matter of time till all the evidence comes in. But it's interesting, and it's certainly hot on X right now. Yep. The pipe bomber waves to DC police. No big deal. Totally not an inside job. Sarcasm there. And so you'll see the person come into view. Cops are lined across the street. As the person walks by, you'll see the gesture. Here we go. And also keep an eye, look for gender tells in the individual as they walk by. Here we go. Hey there, guys. Very quick. Take a look. Here she comes again, or he, whatever. Take a look. But my own take, watch the rump on this person as they exit. That looks like a little bit of a female hip waist ratio there to me on there. Okay, and then we've got another one here, again, talking about the gender play with this story. Look at the video. For all those who thought the DC pipe bomber looked like a woman adjusting her bra, probably working on the inside, you're looking pretty good at this point. Holy F, she is one of ours. Internet is undefeated. Okay, here she is. So she comes, sits down, he, she, they, starts doing a little something or other's going on there. What's going on there? Kind of a little, get comfy. Uh-oh, I gotta adjust that. All right, so that, and Gleb Beck was obviously voicing his opinion about it. And then here we go. We got one more. Okay. Is that you, Blake?
Yeah, sorry, just my somebody's knocking a tree down here.
Oh, Okay. All right, here we go. Less lethal. Well, here we go. Makes you go. Officer Lugos, less lethal instructor Kirchhoff departed the Capitol Police roughly 6 months after January 6 colleagues learned she joined a 3-letter federal agency, intel agency. So she joined either CIA, FBI, NSA, one of them. She, it could be one of them. She promptly scrubbed her social media, phone numbers, and email accounts. There she is again. This is the person they're alleging may in fact be the DC bomber. So ended up going off and joining a 3-letter agency 6 months after being a Capitol Hill officer. And then finally, we've got one more where we can see the young lady in action herself with a public service announcement of some sort. Okay, we make her big. There we go.
It's on us to change the way we talk about women. I'm Shawnee Kirchhoff, and it's on us to stop sexual assault. I took the pledge, and you can too, at itsonus.org. It's on us to change the way we talk about women. I'm Shawnee Kirchhoff, and it's on us to stop sexual assault. I took the pledge, and you can too, at itsonus.org.
Okay, and the comment above there saying it's going to be an interesting day. This is allegedly the J6 bomber. If this linchpin of the J6 bomber has been very important from our side of things, of course, Ray Epps, another FBI suspect, allegedly, this guy was actually slapped on the wrist by the same judge that's been going hard after Trump, which is another interesting thing. Of course, in DC, we have a real hard time from our side of the political aisle having justice anyway fall to our side. When was the last time we won anything in DC other than the presidency, right? Yeah. It's a tough market for us to operate in. Their biggest mistake may prove to have been Mar-a-Lago, thus giving the FBI and the Department of Justice legitimacy in having things held in Florida, a state friendlier to our cause, to the cause of justice, I would argue. Blake, thoughts on that whole panorama? First of all, the gender of the bomber. Again, some of the pictures, they look quite slim, no breasts to speak of that you could see. They're all bundled up in their outfit. But to me, when allegedly she is walking off camera there, that hip waist ratio, that little rump, looked a little on the female childbearing, biologically accommodating side. Thoughts?
Well, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't really matter on the gender of the person who done it. It was the intent of what was being organized, and I believe that part of this was to do as a Plan B approach. If for whatever reason the FBI, whatever you want to call them, non-dressed, hiding in MAGA outfits, supporting potentially Antifa people who are dressed as MAGA, didn't break into the Capitol building, that this was potentially Plan B, that they were going to fire off a bomb right near where Nancy Pelosi was. And I think that's what they were going to use as a backup, because they aborted it. You could tell that they went back and picked up the package and just left like it was no big deal. So I think it was Plan B. If for whatever reason they couldn't convince a bunch of idiots to follow, to go into the Capitol building and do their thing, because they needed something to trigger this insurrection narrative that they were creating, PSYOP, essentially what it was. So the Ray Epps and those kind of guys did what they needed to do, get people to go in the building. And I think they pulled the plug on Plan B, because said, oh, we're in the building, we got what we need, right? That's all we needed. And so we don't have to go with the bomb secondary. So but yeah, it is a smoking gun if they can nail the person and get them to squeal on why they were doing what they were doing. And hopefully we can get that out, because that will just package up the whole thing as really what it was, is an attempted coup d'etat. And that's essentially what they were doing. This whole 2020 election, all of it's going to be packaged up. if they can find proof that there was a 100% without a shadow of a doubt that there was corruption within the illegal vote counts, and what they tried to do with January 6th, you package it all together and it's a coup d'etat, right? That's essentially what it would fall under, is that was the real insurrection. What was being organized behind the scenes by these forces that wanted to paint the entire MAGA movement and Donald Trump as its leader as an insurrectionist. It was the biggest gaslight in history. I would call it that. I mean, essentially, they made everybody believe the opposite of what they were doing. They were trying to paint the other person of doing it, and I hope they nail the person. But yeah, this kind of lines up with if that is the person, that sort of radical ideologues that are being recruited. Obama was recruiting them. Obama he wanted to create a civilian corps of community activists, and he did. He started funding it. So they've got these cells all over America. They put that in place. So I think this is just part of it.
One of the interesting pieces of evidence is that the FBI did release a photo of her where they calculated her height as being, or this individual's height, let's say, we don't know, at being 5'7". Coincidentally, Shawnee Kirkhoff is 5'7". The only reason it's important, that it's important that whether it's male or female, is because if it's female, that lends itself to the description of Shawnee Kirkhoff, who's clearly female, and it leads closer to capturing or identifying or unmasking this whole thing. And as Glenn Beck was saying, once her identity is revealed, then the higher ups start to fall like pancakes.
Yeah, that's insane. You get them squealing, right? If they think they're going to jail for a long, long time, they'll plea down by providing evidence against those that instructed them to do it. And that's what we're hoping with Comey. That's what we're hoping with Brennan. You get these guys on the stand, they start squealing like little pigs because they're cowards.
Once the real pressure gets laid on.
Especially Comey. He painted himself as some kind of freaking hero, and so did the media, and gave him a book deal and all this stuff. That was his payoff. That's how they do it. They give you a book deal with some ridiculous amount of money that's not worth what the book deal's worth, but that's how you get your payola.
Yeah, it's money laundering. So they publish. It's a way to money, and so it's a way to reward loyal soldiers to the team.
Yeah,
and so they use it. Somebody comes up with a book deal, and next thing you know, it's like millions of dollars, and the book is on the New York Times because the New York Times co-opted, so they throw it on the bestseller list, and you've got it's a wrap-up smear after. It's all a nice tidy package. Blake, how do you answer this kind of comment? The problem in the US is the media. They've been co-opted by the Democrat Party and will be their mouthpiece until the ultimate collapse of this country. How do you defeat that mechanism, Blake?
We're doing it now. This is how we're defeating it. As Elon Musk said, we are the media now. It means you, the individual, have the power to get your information out to the masses collectively as a group, the thousands, if not millions of us who now have been democratized in the sharing information. And I think X was the catalyst. If Elon Musk did not buy X, I think they would have closed the gap to the point where, you're shut out of anywhere. I mean, there was a few, Rumble and a few others that kind of got going.
Yeah.
But X was the place where the world was going for information, and it was being controlled by the establishment. And that means the regime media, and they were restricting anybody with alternative voices or let's just say opposition to the regime that's been running the world at this point. And Elon Musk broke them. He challenged them, and it's just, you could say the Lord works in mysterious ways, right? Even if Elon Musk isn't a believer, he still used them to pound that door wide open so that it ended the authoritarian regimes that were locking us down using big tech in a collusion manner to lock us all down. But we are now the voice. We can there's people on X, there's people on, and now of course that's broken YouTube. YouTube's free now. Facebook is, is broken down because of MAGA has opened the door to all of that free speech. They no longer have to feel fearful. And I'm talking about Google or big companies like that you've got this apparatus that would be threatening you if you don't comply. Some of them, I think, were voluntary with that, in my opinion, but I think they would get monopolies. But I think in this situation, we working together now have a voice and we defeat them. And you said, you look at the view counts, and some of the people that are on X have larger views way beyond CNN, way beyond ABC or CBS. They are jealous. In Canada, they have to subsidize the regime media with tax dollars because they can't compete against the alternative media, which I would call is now technically the mainstream media now. All of us are the mainstream. They're not.
They're now, yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting thing. There's so much, Blake. And you know what? Here's an interesting aside. This is where we're seeing, boy, this is just crazy. But a lot of people are talking about Q, what the media calls like QAnon, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a source. The Dems used it. They really shut it down for a long time, and nobody was talking about it. But it's starting to make a big comeback. You know what? Where I first learned, and I was part of that. I watched all the Q drops. And back in the day, do you know where I first learned the name of Kash Patel?
No idea.
On 8chan through QAnon.
Oh, okay.
Q, the Q operative, basically the idea. And so it was vilified. It was denigrated. It was used to mock and deride people on our side. But so much information came out through the 8chan, through that identity known as Q. Kash Patel, I knew about Kash Patel years before he ever came out. And the post that Q made about him was Kash Patel, a name to remember. A name to remember. And that's all he said. And then, 4 years later, the guy's the head of the FBI. This kind of thing. So Q would alert, announce things and do things and provide information. Here's an interesting Q drop that's coming out. Very strange, but very interesting. So Q seems to be making a return. And even on YouTube, a lot of the channels that were taken down, Praying Medic, people that were into this, iPod, channels like that name, 22, I forget his last first thing. But anyway, the X22 report, that's it, Dave from the X22. These accounts are now being allowed back on YouTube. Again, there seems to be a loosening of the control mechanisms in the United States. The arm wrestle is moving our way. Check this. This is Matt Gaetz, former Congressman Matt Gaetz. He just does this. This is it. That's the post. Former Congressman. It's a big orange Q on a pile of bricks. What's interesting about that is it goes, I don't know what is cooler. Matt Gaetz posting a giant Q with no context, or Eagle Ed Martin, quote, tweeting it back or reposting it. Less than 24 hours after Dan Scavino posted another pic that had the Do It Q vibe. Wow, Do It Q is an old thing from that. Where we go one, we go all. And there's Ed Martin, who is currently investigating the whole Letitia James situation in New York with the real estate hassles. And he's been making some very interesting posts. You look at him, he's walking around like Columbo. And he's got a trench coat, and he's outside Brownstones, and he's looking up at him. He goes, "Oh, James owns this thing. Let's see what we got going here." So it's very interesting. Kimbo writes, David Ick is back too, or Icky. Yeah, I was never a big fan of him in particular, but I know who he is. It's just, but in fairness, it's okay, bring them back. And there's more than just those handful of accounts that I mentioned. A whole bunch of them are back, some better than others, right? But what do you think about that? Blake, were you aware of Q when it was happening? Is this still voodoo?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about it?
I was aware of it. I didn't put any stock. I'm always concerned that there's distractions that are created by this and psyops. I do believe psyops are a real thing. It is a real thing. The CIA has done, and other intelligence agencies do psyops, and it could be literally a way to distract. But who knows? I mean, we know that our faith is in God, and we go with what our spirit tells us. But it's always fascinating, I think, that if there's some insider that's kind of watching within the ranks of the global elites and is exposing them. We've talked about that there's white hats and black hats within the world that are operating at that level. Some might say Elon Musk is a white hat that was fighting the black hats and the elitist regime and came out front with that. But who knows, right? We just know that there's a lot at stake right now. And I just would be very cautious. That's all I would say. Be very wary. Make sure you check your spirit. What's being said feels right and is true. Lines up with reality and facts. I just concerned that right now that there's a orchestrated attempt to divide MAGA, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it on within the talking heads community, from the Ben Shapiro's to the fighting with what's his name, Nick Fuentes. And they're trying to go after Tucker. They're going after everybody, and I'm like, hold on a minute. Tucker Carlson was the guy that exposed January 6th and lost his job over it at Fox. And he did the bomber, he did the Ray Epps, he covered it all, and the next thing you know, he was asked to leave. And that was it. He was done. But I don't like that, because I think it's an op. I think they're trying to create division.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's my opinion on it. Just be very cautious.
Yeah. Now, I've been following this for many years now, so it was never a divisive thing. This new thing with Candace Owen and Ben Shapiro and the Fuentes and stuff. Fuentes is big problems for me.
I agree. I think he's nuts. Yeah, I think he's an op.
I think there are players in that way running interference. I think Candace Owens fulfills that role as well. She's there's a lot of problems with her. But mostly, how I judge them. If they go against Trump, they're not me. I'm with Trump. I'm all in on Trump. Trump's the guy. He's the president. He got it done. It's his team. You either stand with Trump or you're with Rand Paul. Rand Paul is no friend to the administration. Rand Paul is no friend to the American people. He's one of the voices opposing the filibuster. And if the Republicans don't do it, the Democrats are going to do that. I believe Trump fully when he says that's in play. Just like CNN, when you saw the interview that they had the Democrat on there. Here's another thing. You don't have to trust them you got to trust them by their works, right? Not by what their words are, but by the works. If this guy goes Kash Patel 4 years before he's on the world stage radar and goes Kash Patel, that's the name to watch. And lo and behold, Kash Patel becomes the head of the FBI. That's a pretty good point. Yeah, scratch one for you, because nobody else knew who he was, but I knew who he was. We knew, and also the Q postings on 8chan did some of the best groundwork on Julian Assange. Talking about Julian Assange, one of the big things that got my attention on Trump when it started to break in 2016, remember that the Wikigate started happening at that same time with Elon Musk. And not Elon Musk, with Julian Assange. The British government arrested the guy. There was a lot of heat. on Julian Assange, a lot of heat. And what it did irreparable damage to the Democrat Party, because nothing is better than revealing the emails from the system itself. So you don't have Fox News, you don't have Donald Trump, you don't have an enemy of the Democrats condemning them, convicting them. You take the information itself, and it's all laid out itself in its own writings within the context of its own communication system. Absolutely fascinating. Here's another interesting Q thing that showed up. This came back a while ago, but here's Elon Musk joining in the fun. MJ Truth Ultra goes, remember when Elon Musk hit a 17? Of course, Q 17 is number for Q. 17th letter in the alphabet is Q. Drop a Pepe, the symbol of the Q team, if you remember. And then it's got all this going on, 111. It's got some 8s in the middle making this thing up. And then there's 117 over there that he threw in, just as a teaser, as a, what do you call it? An Easter egg, if you will, for the folks out there. So it is interesting. I'm very happy to see the chains have been brought off of that, because it's happening. And some big players, when you get somebody like Matt Gaetz, Ed Martin playing around with cube games, they're part of Trump's administration. Those are Trump's boys. So if they're doing it, there you go. I think it has a lot more validity than 28 if. Okay, which was wrong information, by the way. McCartney would have been 27 if. 27 if they got it wrong. But, and also, well, that's a whole, I could go on for hours about that. Blake, final thoughts on today's program? Any story that we failed to cover that you want to address right now that's, that's got your interest, or comments to the kids?
Well, I think the biggest story that we could cover maybe next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is the ongoing debate in Canada now over fee simple ownership is in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And that Canada is the only country in the Western world that has made its property by court edict at risk from being indefeasible, which means essentially it's no longer protected. That what those guarantees that the banks need to finance projects based on property or your mortgage is now no longer protected as per the court ruling over the Cowichan decision. So I think that's a broader story that is picked up a lot of news in Canada. And I'm sure it's just another nail in the coffin of Canada's fast crashing sinkhole that it's in right now.
Really interesting.
And now I'm hearing, we could go on Tuesday and have a whole session on this, but the fact is that there's people now projecting that Canada has less than 2 years to survive now as a country. Wow. So if that's the case, America taking over Canada would be inevitable. Wow. If that's the case.
Powerful note. Powerful note to end the program on, Blake. All right, we'll talk more about that. It is a developing story. And just on that note, apparently Kamloops, the entire city, 100,000 people in Kamloops, is now apparently being claimed by multiple native tribes. Say, we own Kamloops, so look the hell out. It's a roller coaster ride of some incline. Blake, thank you so much for being here. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Enjoy the sailing and good hunting. He's off to, what are you going to pan for gold? What are you up to?
No, I'm just here at Quadra Island going to the historic Harriet Bay Inn. We've got an event there and be spending the weekend and just enjoying the wildness of this island. It's great.
Yeah, Blake is an expert in this area. This is why we call it Ghost Town Politics. Blake's he truly is a knowledgeable, well-read expert in this field. So thank you again, as always, Blake. We love you lots. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much. Thumbs up, like the video, share the video. You know the drill. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.